Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.
Hi, I'm Cherry Johnson with Watauga County Arts Council, and I have with me Joe Watson and Joel Williams, and I got it right. I'm proud of myself. I told them they were going to tongue-tie me. I have spent probably about 30 minutes, a very fascinating time. What we're going to try to consolidate into a very short snippet here just to kind of get you started, and then you're just going to have to follow up on your own and learn more about this on your own. Let's start with Joe. Joe, you are an actor.
Yes.
And you played, I've heard Daniel Boone this summer?
I did. I played Daniel Boone in Horn in the West this season and last season.
You walked in some big shoes.
Those were some very big shoes to fill. There was a lot of new faces that came in last season, and this season we got some more familiar faces, and I really got to fall into the role, and it was exciting.
That's great.
To be part of the community here in that show.
Well, I think that is a very noteworthy engagement that you got to do. But I think what you're going to be working, or what you are working with Joel here, has its roots in being something very big as well.
Absolutely, and I am fortunate. Not only the character that I'm playing, Quill Hopkins, in this show is very complex and challenging as an actor, but the story itself is it's one of those feel-good stories for the ages.
It really is.
It really is. So.
That's really great. So this gives you a great opportunity.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Now, we're all walking around this, and we're not telling the story here. Joel, you are technically a director, right?
That's right. By training and mostly by trade.
Okay, but now you've kind of ventured into new territory.
That's correct.
And you have written a play that is named Promises. I'm going to pull up the poster. And this is a play that is fascinating. And if you have any knowledge of the local being regional history, this will be especially fascinating to you.
I think so, yeah.
And I would think it would also really appeal to people who had lived during the era of the evolution of the Fontana Dam.
Absolutely.
When the Fontana Dam was actually created.
Right.
And this story actually has roots back to that. So you're kind of telling a history story, but you're also telling a very personal story. And you're also telling a biblical story.
Well, it alludes to a biblical story.
Yes, it's not accurately.
It's not. No. It just the names are there, and the relationship, the complexity of a man and a woman and another woman, kind of thing.
So this story is about a young man who goes back to fulfill a deathbed promise for someone, right?
Well, he's actually, because of the timing of everything, he's actually in his 50s, the way we've said it. I originally conceived him to be about 67, but with college students, it's hard to play that age. So we've moved the date a little earlier, about a decade earlier, so the student playing that could be a little more like himself.
Yes.
Himself. So I told him, I said, I'm 58. You can look like me, can't you?
A little bit of silver powder.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's the lights in the studio that do that, I think, yeah. But this was a story I stumbled across when I was doing some research on the web back in 2006. I was looking for day trips to take my two sons, who were in school at the time, get them out of the house on the weekend in the summer. And I came across something that some folks may know, because if you're familiar with Southwest, down around Swain County, Bryson City, there's a sort of political human story about the road to nowhere. And when I began to read about that, I learned about Fontana Lake, the building of Fontana Dam, the thing that absolutely blew me away, because I had vacationed with my family in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park when I was about 6 or 7 years old. Loved the Great Smokies. And but I didn't know that the original park boundary had expanded by 44,000 acres. Just
just as a preservation.
It because of the building of the dam and the elimination of a road that serviced communities along the north shore of what was then the Little Tennessee River.
Right.
They had the TVA, who built the dam, had to relocate families. But they built the dam because of the war.
Right.
When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in '41, in December, in January, they started building Fontana Dam to supply electricity to the Alcoa plant over in Knoxville, Tennessee, because they needed it for planes and that sort of thing.
And that's about all most of us know.
Yeah. Well, the TVA had to dislocate over 1,000 families.
Right.
And they told them, there was a written agreement, you can go back and see it, and it's a big thing politically down in Swain County, that when the war was over and funds became available, there's the caveat, that they would rebuild a road along the north shore of the new lake. So the families who had cemeteries in this 44,000 acres of land, which wasn't going to be under the lake,
Right.
they didn't choose to have the bodies moved because they said, we'll be able to go back in.
Right.
Well, the road never got built. A portion of the road got built.
So they were cut off.
So these cemeteries were cut off. The 44,000 acres of land was cut off. The TVA is not in the business of land management. They talked about maybe giving it to the National Park and the National Forest Service. Well, the National Park ended up getting it. So the National Park, Great Smoky Mountain National Park, which was really started in 1934, in 1943 was expanded by these 44,000 acres. So there are 24 cemeteries on the North Shore. The locals call that area the North Shore. And they have North Shore Cemetery decorations every year with cooperation of the National Park Service. Park Service provides pontoon boats. They cross the lake up into these tributary creeks where these communities were.
Family up in
So
there.
people who have family or people who are interested
Yeah.
and concerned. When I first started reading about this in the library over at ASU in the Appalachian Collection, I was fascinated by it. And I said, I've got to go and see one. So I think the first decoration I went to was in 2009. And I was just blown away by the number of people who were there. There were over 100 people. For that day, I'd chosen to go to the cemetery called Bone Valley. There's a Bone Valley Creek, and there's a Bone Valley Cemetery. And it took us about 30 minutes. I had to wait for almost 2 hours to get on the boat because they're ferrying these people across in small groups. The pontoon boats only hold so
They're
many.
small, right.
And some folks have their own boats. Some of the locals go across in their own boats and that sort of thing. But the Park Service, we got on the boat. So it's about 30 minutes across the lake. Then you get off at this old trail.
Right.
And you wait another hour or so while the SUVs that they barged across the lake to drive you up 6 miles into the national park to get these cemeteries.
Wow.
So first of all, I was just absolutely blown away by the fact that for years, for about 30 years from the time the dam was built to 1978, people would have to make this trip on their own with no support from anybody. And not very many people were able to do that. So in 1978, there were a lot of people involved, but two primary women who were teenagers in 43 who are now in their 80s, and they're going to be here on Friday night of the show. We're going to have an audience talk back, and they're going to be part of the panel.
Right.
And so they got these cemetery decorations started. Every year, if you go to the North Shore Cemetery Association website, you'll see that they have a regular schedule, that the annual schedule they do on first and third Sundays from April to September, where they go across the lake and decorate these cemeteries.
Wow.
And the National Park Service helps them.
Hinges around this man,
Right.
who goes to.
He comes to a decoration day because he has learned from his mother, or the woman he thought was his biological mother,
that his
the woman
real
who raised
mother
that
is
his
buried
real
there.
biological mother is actually buried on the North Shore. And when she tells him this, it's a shock to him, and he begins to piece together the story of how he came to be, and the story of his father and his father's relationship with these two women and how it unfolded, and how his father struggled to make a living as a subsistence farmer and then was dislocated by the lake.
And so in the middle of all this his personal history, you
Right.
learn the history
of
yeah.
right.
This is really fascinating, and I wish we could even just show it off. You
All
know,
right.
but people are going to have to come see
They're going to
it.
have to come see the play.
Okay,
right.
now the play is going to be October 2nd through 5th, which is coming right up.
This right away.
And it's going to be at 7:30 on the 2nd through the 5th, and then on the 6th at 2 o'clock.
That's correct. So it's Wednesday through Saturday night at 7:30, and then Sunday afternoon at 2.
At the Valborg Theater.
At the
on
Valborg Theater, right
campus.
behind the Turchin Center.
And tickets are only $15 for adults and
correct.
$8 for students, which is a really good buy for such a wonderful story.
Well,
you know?
for any kind of live theater, because of
Yeah.
course we're fortunate at the university to be able to produce it with students, and we don't have to pay them a lot of money, and we don't really get to pay them any money.
That's right.
But
They get paid in
right, so our
experience.
costs are related to scenery and those sorts of things, costumes.
But you've also built a whole nother set. I don't know who did you organize this?
I did.
Okay, this was put together. The Alan Jabor has been in Watauga County before, We've been associated with him through the Arts Council in years gone by
Right.
in various ways. And of course, we've had a history of working very closely with traditional music. That's still going on at the Jones House. And so Alan Jabbour is going to be coming as a part of this. Now, what is his tie-in? Why is Alan Jabbour important?
He was a co-author of a study about Decoration Days in the National Park Service did an environmental impact study. And that's one of the first research pieces I read in the library.
Right.
Well, it turns out when I started going down to the Decoration Days, I found out that he and his wife had gotten so interested in the whole tradition of Decoration Days that they've published a book. And she took the photos for it. And it's not just about the North Shore, it's about Decoration Day traditions throughout the Southern Appalachians. There's a whole chapter, really more than a whole chapter, but one whole chapter dedicated to the North Shore cemetery decorations. And he got so fascinated by doing the environmental impact study that he followed up and published the book in 2010, which is the same year I actually finished the script of the play.
Worked out well.
It's taken us several years to get the play, and that's not untypical for a play. We had readings. I entered it into the SART, Southern Appalachian Repertory Theater down in Mars Hill, has a play competition.
Right.
And they're going to do the professional world premiere next summer.
How
down
exciting.
at Mars Hill. Yeah, we're very excited about it. So we got on the ball and started doing it here. But anyway, it turned out that Alan Jabbour was going to be at Western Carolina giving a talk. I went down and met him, found out that he was involved in this, and invited him to come. And he was very excited. He's a big fan of the theater. He and his wife volunteer at the arena up in Washington. And he's very excited about coming. And then I found out he was a fiddle player. That's what he graduated from Duke with his doctorate degree in musicology. He collected. He was at the Library of Congress. He was head of the archive of folk song, and he had gone around and collected old-time fiddle music, which wasn't written down, and got it into the Library of Congress.
Wow.
He's worked with Cecil Garganus. Cecil's going to play with him at the Jones House on Saturday. The tie-in to the play is there is a dance that's central to the plot. It's one of the places where Quill and our central character, Joseph's father, Jacob, and Quill are always butting heads about things. Quill's about to haul off a young lady, and Jacob sort of saves her from him, and they end up falling in love and getting married. And because of that dance in the show, we thought it would be very appropriate to do a dance down at the Jones House. So we've got a music dance. I understand, I haven't met him, but I understand that Robert Dotson is a 90-year-old flat-footer.
He is. He's amazing.
Yeah, and so Rebecca Keeter, who's in our dance department, and Dr. Susan Mills has really worked very hard to put this concert performance together down at the Jones House.
My good friend John Turner, who's a great dancer,
oh, really?
is going to be involved in this.
Fantastic.
So,
yeah.
And Julie Gerganis as well, and then Gordy Heiners, who I don't know. But
so that's the Saturday afternoon before the play on Saturday night.
So there's all kinds of things
There
going
is,
on.
and Friday afternoon, Dr. Jabbour and his co-author of the Environmental Impact Study, Dr. Ted Coyle, from Western Carolina, are going to talk about the whole notion of what Decoration Day is.
So an opportunity to learn more about this whole concept.
We really thought the play is, I think the play stands alone as a really interesting human story, but one of the reasons I wrote it was to try to bring some recognition. Helen and Mildred Cable,
these ladies,
now Helen Vance and Mildred Cable Johnson, are just wonderful people, and they've worked so hard to get the Decoration Days established and to keep them ongoing.
That's cool.
And after I met the people and saw what they did, I said, these people deserve to have some recognition because there's just so many people who it's right there in our backyard. The Great Smoky Mountain National Park, right there in our backyard, and there's such a wonderful history about it. If you go to the Welcome Center on the just outside of Gatlinburg at the National Park, if you go in the back behind the bookstore and look carefully, there's a display about the North Shore cemetery decorations. But you got to know where to look for it.
I started to say I've been there and I did not see it.
Right, you got to kind of it's back in there, but it's not the story of the national park, but it's such an interesting human story.
You may be making it the story.
Well, I don't think that I'll make it the story, but when I told them I was writing the play. They said, well, anything we can do to let people know
this history
is important to us. And they've been very supportive and very helpful.
It's really fascinating. And the more you've told me, the more interesting it gets, So now you're going to be presenting this play again this October, the first weekend in October.
That's correct. That's coming
and
up.
the dates again are the 2nd through the 5th at 7:30 at night.
Right, Wednesday through
and
Saturday.
then 6 o'clock on Sunday. And you're going to be very tired after that.
Absolutely, I am very tired in general.
Joe's got 3 big fight scenes.
So there are 3 fight scenes within it, and can I say that what's exciting about all of this is everything that's surrounding the play.
Exactly.
I've got to say that all of the
Exactly.
community involvement, the interest. I haven't been part of a production like that at this university, so
Right.
this is all new and exciting and grand.
It isn't
I
that
think.
often that we see this done.
Yeah, the
So,
visual art,
uh-huh.
the visual arts folks have gotten involved.
involved.
They're doing an exhibit in the Valborg lobby that's going to be open every weekday afternoon. So even if you don't come see the
fascinating.
play, you can
Right.
come by and see the
Yeah.
exhibit that features a lot of Karen Jabor's photography and placards from a museum exhibit that they did down at Western Carolina.
Right.
And the art students have made homemade crepe flowers, which is a traditional way
Yeah.
that people used to, before you could go out and buy artificial flowers, they used to make their own artificial flowers to decorate the graves with.
That's great.
And it's just a.
How interesting. This whole thing is fascinating. So,
Oh, and I need to mention, I have to, I forgot, Neva Spake, who is a theater historian,
Right.
or not a theater historian, a historian.
Yes.
And Appalachian Studies, the Center for Appalachian Studies, have also been very involved in the symposium and
good.
putting it together. So
Good
we've
for
got the
her.
history department, art department, music department, dance department, theater department, all trying to bring some attention to
That's
this
great.
history.
that is wonderful. And all just because you had a great idea.
Well, all because there's a really great story that I just happened to stumble on.
You just got to come be a part of this and enjoy this production. I hope you do get to do that. I hope you get to meet some of these incredible people that are coming into the area, and also some of the incredible people that are already in the area. Check our website for a link to this and a whole lot more.
Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.